meet him, I will tell him. I'll say, you, Donald Trump, you are even worse because your forebears came to America. They found the indigenous Americans. They wiped them out. They killed nearly all of them.
Greetings, everyone. I hope you are fine. I hope you are doing well. And I would like to appreciate you for taking this moment, this time to watch this video. I'm Olani Moloi. And I would like to begin by saying this is one of those embarrassing situations that I can say is too much, where a black man is embarrassed in front of the whole world because of puppeting, whereby an African child is misrepresented. Africa, you will never be respected as long as you don't believe in yourselves.
Thank you so much, President Trump, and Embarassing from ENCA in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What would you like President Ramaphosa to do about the situation that we've just seen on the screen?
I don't know. Look, these are articles over the last few days. Death of people. Death. Horrible death. Death. I don't know. To pick anyone. White South Africans are fleeing because of the violence and racist laws. And this is all, I mean, I'll give these to you. So when you say, what would I like to do? I don't know what to do. Look at this. White South African couples say that they were attacked violently. And,
President Trump, when will you go and see for yourself if it is indeed true?
well, I could do that. Look, here's burial sites all over the place. These are all white farmers that are being buried. And he asks about a jet that was given. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You know, you are so bad. You're such a bad reporter. This is one after another. This family was wiped out. I'm just looking.
Can we get a report from President Ramaphosa,
Your
please?
reaction to those videos, Mr. President?
Well, I think the videos are so. No. When you look at the videos, I mean, how does it get worse? And these are people that are officials, and they're saying that.
You know, when we talk about a genocide, something like a genocide happening in a country, whenever you produce evidence, you have to show something like what is happening in Palestine right now, between Israel and Palestine. In other words, you have to produce that kind of evidence. So you can tell that this is a compilation of people maybe who have been dying, like maybe, but in separate years. Maybe others, it happened in 2011, others 2014, 2016, 2017, 2020. This is that kind of a compilation, and it doesn't give any justice. And you cannot use this compilation to prove that there's genocide happening in South Africa. And they know that there's nothing like genocide happening in South Africa. But they just want to prove that they are in charge, that they are in control.
Kill the white farmer and take their land. That's
Please
what it
allow
is.
Ramaphosa
And I
to
have other
respond.
friends in South Africa. I have people that left. One in particular that says you can't go there. He said they want to take your land. They take your land and they kill you. It's okay, and they say it's okay to do. Now we're going to talk about it. But this is a tremendous look. This is a story recent. These are all people that recently got killed.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it can get any worse. These are, and you know, the men that you saw, the people that you saw.
The mistake that Donald Trump made in this video, he was supposed to give Mr. Ramaphosa a chance to explain. But instead of giving this person a chance to explain, you still keep on emphasizing that this is wrong. They're killing people. They're doing this. They're killing the farmers. And you don't even have a complete evidence. Because if you are a president, you are mature enough to know what kind of evidence that is needed, even in a court of law, to prove that there's genocide happening. So genocide, the example of genocide happening is clear enough in Palestine.
Those are officials. Those are people that were in office. They had one march. They had a dance in your parliament, whatever you may call it, legislature.
But let me clarify that.
Yeah,
let me clarify that, because what you saw, the speeches that were being made, one, that is not government policy. We have a multi-party democracy in South Africa that allows people to express themselves, political parties to adhere to various policies, and in many cases, or in some cases, those policies do not go along with government policy. Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament.
Mr. Ramaphosa was supposed to provide context because he knows very well what Malema was actually saying, because he knows very well about the saw. In other words, he should have provided a context when it comes to this saw. So now you can tell that these people were not even available during struggle. In other words, during struggle, they were living a comfortable life because they were already associated with white people. Because instead of criticizing Malema to say, no, our policies are against what this man is saying. In other words, with this man, we don't see eye to eye, and etc., etc. In other words, you should have provided context, because there is context. This man is not you have to do this. You have to kill. You have to destroy. He's as long as we don't give justice to what happened to the past amongst black people, as long as black people are living in squatter camps, as long as black people are excluded in their own land, in their own economy, there's going to be a problem. You have to provide a context. But to me, this situation is like a situation between Bas and Yes Bas. If you have ever been in that situation, or if you have ever seen a conversation between Bas and Yes Bas, you will know what I'm talking about.
And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can take land.
And then when they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No. There is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately, through criminal activity, are not only white people. Majority of them are black people. And we have now been utilized.
The farmers are not black. I don't say that's good or bad, but the farmers are not black. And the people that are being killed in large numbers, and you saw all those grave sites, and those are people that loved ones going, I guess on a Sunday morning, they told me, to pay respect to their loved ones that were killed. Their heads chopped off. They died violently.
Those multiple crosses that are on the road there is not even a graveyard or a graveside. So there's no truth in this whole thing. In other words, and again, he doesn't even care about black people who are dying daily here in South Africa. He only cares about white people. He only cares about white people, because if they cared about black people, in other words, they would intervene in countries like Democratic Republic of Congo and many other countries. Even during apartheid, they liked what happened during apartheid, until them as a system came up with a different strategy to say, okay, we have to convince these people that now we have to look like angels.
And, we're here to talk about it, and I didn't know we'd get involved here, but I will say this, that if the news wasn't fake like NBC, which is fake news totally, one of the worst, ABC, NBC, CBS, horrible. But if they weren't fake news like this jerk that we have here, if we had real reporters, they'd be covering it. But the fake news in this country doesn't talk about that. They don't want to talk about it, but now they have to talk about it. But they won't. This won't even be a subject. They'll have him talking about why did a country give a free, think of this, why did a country give an airplane to the United States Air Force? Okay, the United States, not to me, to the United States Air Force, so they could help us out, because we need an Air Force One until that's Air Force One, it's being built, 2 of them being built. But Boeing's a little bit late, unfortunately. So why did they give us a plane to the United States Air Force? That's what that idiot talks about after viewing a thing where thousands of people are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I'd take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay. But coming back to this issue, which I really would like us to talk about, and talk about it very calmly. We were taught by Nelson Mandela that whenever there are problems, people need to sit down around a table and talk about it.
We were taught by Nelson Mandela. Every time we have to deal with certain issues, we always need to bring the name of Nelson Mandela. There's nothing wrong about that. But we can tell that we have a history here of 1994, whereby the indigenous people of this land were scammed. So now again, you find yourself in a podium or in a situation whereby now you have to explain what is happening in South Africa. You bring again Nelson Mandela. Instead of telling this man that what you see here on television and what your friends, Donald Trump, are telling you is a big lie. So the reason our history is not respected is because we are afraid to talk about our history in these situations. We are only comfortable to talk about history amongst ourselves. In other words, we are only comfortable to talk about our history amongst ourselves. But whenever we face people like Donald Trump, in other words, white people, we are no longer comfortable to talk about our history. So that is why they will never respect us. Why history is important here is because it gives context to the soul. It gives context why South Africans need the land. In other words, it gives context to most of these questions that Donald Trump is having. But even though I suspect that Donald Trump is playing politics here, he wanted to expose Cyril Ramaphosa so that even the members of BRICS would no longer trust him.
Well, there are
and this is precisely what we would also like to talk about, including, of course, trade matters, investment matters. So the issues that concern you as the United States.
Those are all recent. Those are all deaths.
Yeah, in many ways.
He doesn't even allow President Ramaphosa to explain. Why? Because he already made up his mind that I cannot listen to this man. You know, this is how the puppet masters behave. In other words, they will call you and say, come and explain, but they've already made up their minds not to listen to you. So that is why I'm like, when I see this, it's like this is a conversation between Bas and Yes Bas. The other one has already made his mind that, you know what, I'm not even ready to listen to this man. So that is why he's like, look what is happening here. In other words, he's not willing to listen to Mr. Ramaphosa. And you know why he's no longer even willing, or he was no longer even willing at this point to listen to Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa? is because the confidence of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa was already down. Even when he's explaining, you can tell he's explaining with fear. In other words, I have to mark my words here because I'm talking with my master.
I mean, one should say you are a partner of South Africa, and you are raising concerns, and these are concerns that we are willing to talk to you about. Let me just add quickly, you know, the criminality that we are experiencing in our country needs quite a lot of technological capability. And in one of our areas in South Africa, we're using US technology, which is able to, in many ways, identify where shootings are happening and all that. And I'd like to talk about that because...
First of all, criminality doesn't need technology first. Yes, technology is important, but it doesn't mean technology is the most fundamental thing or the most important thing when it comes to eliminating criminality or eliminating crime. In other words, even if we involve technology, we can still do this without the United States of America because we have other partners of BRICS. We have China, we have Russia, and we have others as well. So I don't see any reason to come to America and bow down to America. If I want to go to America as the president, I can just go there and tell them that this thing of genocide is not happening in South Africa. But the problem of puppets is one. In other words, it's like the moment you are in, it's difficult to come out. That is why even President Putin of Russia would not even come to South Africa during BRICS summit, which was held here in South Africa, because he could not trust such people. You can tell by their body language. You can tell by the way they talk. This is completely embarrassing.
There is support that we can get from you and the United States to help us deal with all these acts of criminality. And that is what I believe partnership is all about. And we are here as a partner so that we can help each other whenever there are challenges. So I'd like us to discuss it, and of course outside of the media, so that we sit down and have a really good discussion that will lead to good outcomes.
Those talks outside media, I suspect, is selling out South Africa because it was sold a long time ago. How do we maintain it? How do we keep South Africa as a product of the United States of America and Britain? How do we allow Elon Musk to come to South Africa and do whatever he wants? This is what they want. It doesn't mean they want to leave South Africa, but they want to prosper here in South Africa at the expense of black people.
Are there any other further punitive measures that could be in place should you not be satisfied that South Africa is fixing some of the very bad things, in inverted commas, that you tweeted are happening?
Well, there are a lot of bad things happening in many countries, but this in particular has been very, very bad, very bad. And because of we're going to have the whole world watching in another short period of time because you have the G20, and that's a big deal. And it seems like, I want you to look good. I don't want you to look bad.
Very good.
But we have hundreds of people, thousands of people trying to come into our country because they feel they're going to be killed and their land is going to be confiscated. And you do have laws that were passed that gives you the right to confiscate land for no payment. You can take away land for no payment.
I want to clarify that because we have a constitution. Our constitution guarantees and protects the sanctity of tenure.
Donald Trump doesn't care about this constitution. At this point, he was mad. he was not willing to listen to President Ramaphosa. So,
of land ownership. And that constitution protects all South Africans with regard to land ownership. However, we do say, because we've got to deal with the past, the government, and as your government also has the right to expropriate land for public use.
And you're doing that.
And we've never really gotten underway with that. And we are going to be doing so.
You're taking people's land?
You're taking people's land. These people, when they came here, they took our land. In other words, Britain and the Dutch, they took our land. So now, we want the land back. We want to take the land back. That is why there's expropriation without compensation, apart from this bill of Mr. Ramaphosa. But the truth of the matter is, justice should be executed. But now you can tell this is how these people, the colonialists, operate. Whatever they do is right. The same thing they are doing right now in Palestine. The people of Palestine are trying by all means to fight for their own land. But the people of Palestine are regarded as terrorists, criminals, and etc. and etc. So now, here in South Africa, black people are now regarded as farm killers. These people are actually looking for their land. So that is why if you listen to Malema very, very well, he was like, I'm not a member of Economic Freedom Fighters. I'm not a member of any other political party. I don't endorse politics. But the reason I would defend Malema here is because Malema is a black man first. And no one here is willing to defend Malema. So he has to be defended because he's representing all of us to say if this is not addressed, 1, 2, 3 will happen. In other words, we are pushing the government to make sure that they process this thing of land distribution as fast as possible, because otherwise something bad might happen.
We have not.
From them. And those people in many cases are being executed. They're being executed. And they happen to be white, and most of them happen to be farmers. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough situation. I don't know how you explain that. How do you explain that? They're taking people's land away, and in many cases those people are being executed, and in many cases it's not the government that's doing it, it's people that kill them and then take their land, and nothing happens to them. But we have...
In many cases, these people are executed. So it's like now, even through this expropriation bill, it's like white farmers now are being executed. This doesn't make sense.
We have thousands of people that want to come into our country. They're also going to Australia in a smaller number. But we have thousands of people that want to come into our country, and they're white farmers, and they feel that they're going to die in South Africa, and it's a bad thing. Yeah, please.
What can South Africa do? What concessions would you like to see them make to improve relations with the United States? Then I have one more for President Ramaphosa afterwards.
Well, you know, we just spoke about, I got them a very, very complex machine, 150 of them. I was asked by the president if he could help, and I did that. And, you know, I have great feeling for all countries. I deal with all countries. But I have a great feeling for South Africa because I have friends. I have a couple of friends, a few friends here today. I have many friends from South Africa, but many of those friends are...
In other words, Donald Trump, when he's referring to his friends, he's not talking about black people. He's talking about those white people who play rugby, who play golf, those who are called business people who own South Africa, and etc. He's referring to those people. So That is why his mission is to protect his own friends. He doesn't care about South Africans. He cares about his friends. So, in other words, Donald Trump is exactly like these Boers, 59 and many others who think like this, because they only care about themselves, to be honest. So,
or no, they can't go back. I have Elon is from South Africa. I don't want to get Elon involved. That's all I have to do, get him into another thing. But Elon happens to be from South Africa. This is what Elon wanted. He actually came here on a different subject, sending rockets to Mars, okay? Yes. He likes that better. He likes that subject better. That's right. But Elon is from South Africa, and I don't want to talk to him about that. I don't think it's fair to him.
That's right.
But I will say that people are fleeing South Africa for their own safety. Their land is being confiscated, and in many cases they're being killed. And that scene of, you see how many crosses they have, those crosses, that's...
In other words, all along, he was not listening to President Ramaphosa. He was not listening to any explanation that was provided by Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa is null and void, according to Donald Trump, because he keeps on repeating the very same lies, even though the president of South Africa had already explained the situation.
There's a dead person in every one of them, and those trucks or cars are paying their respects to all of those dead people on a Sunday morning. That's a rough thing to explain away. And the problem we have, and the way, you know, a correct and a fair media exposes things, but we have a very corrupt media. They won't even report this. If this were the other way around, it would be the biggest story. Now, I will say, apartheid, terrible. That was the biggest story. That was reported all the time.
There are many circumstances of apartheid that were not recorded. What you see on television today, on multiple documentaries, is only 2% of how apartheid looked like. So this is not true.
Sort of the opposite of apartheid. What's happening now is never reported. Nobody knows about it. All we know is we're being inundated with people, with white farmers from South Africa, and it's a big problem. Marco Rubio was telling me he's never seen anything like it. The numbers of people that want to leave South Africa because they feel they're going to be dead very soon.
Yeah,
yes, please. Brian, go.
If I could just ask you a question. 72% of farmers in your country are white. If they flee, do you feel that maybe the economy could collapse? You may not have a gap to fill in those people that need to replace those farmers.
You know, I'd like my Minister of Agriculture, who is white, who comes from an opposition party to mine, who's joined my government at my invitation to address this very issue, including the question that you've just raised. John?
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Mr. President, thank you for welcoming us to the White House. I would say we have a rural safety problem in South Africa. I don't think anyone wants to candy coat that. And it requires a lot of effort to get on top of it. It's going to require more policing resources. It's going to require a different strategy to be able to deal with it. But certainly the majority of South Africa's commercial and smallholder farmers really do want to stay in South Africa and make it work. And I've just come from the largest agricultural show in the Southern Hemisphere with organized agriculture and farmers, and the majority of them want to stay. But they too there have a memorial to those who've died as a result of farm attacks. And as the Minister of Agriculture, it is something that I'm particularly exercised with my colleagues at police and my colleagues in the justice cluster to start making farm attacks and stock theft a priority crime. And it affects all farmers in South Africa, particularly stock theft. It has a disproportionate effect on smallholder black farmers. I also want to just say this, that the two individuals that are in that video that you've seen are both leaders of opposition minority parties in South Africa.
John Steenhuisen is also a puppet. He's also a puppet of the West. He's also a puppet of Britain. Now, instead of talking on behalf of all South Africans, he's talking on behalf of GNU. In other words, the people who voted for ANC, DA, AfriForum, and etc., because now he's excluding EFF and people who voted for EFF. He's excluding MK and people who voted for MK. We have millions of people who voted for MK Party and Economic Freedom Fighters combined. So, in other words, those people believe in these leaders. I'm not into politics, but they believe in these leaders. We have millions who believe in the agenda or in the vision of these two leaders. What does this mean? It means if John Steenhuisen is talking like this, then it means they have the agenda of segregating anyone or punishing anyone whose mission is to open the eyes of the people. They don't want that. So that is why now it's like MK, EFF. The reason we came together is because we wanted to block these people. So right now, if you are a South African, you have to know one thing. The aim or the mission, the objective of these people is to block anyone who wants to give you 100% freedom. I'm not saying these leaders, the leader of EFF and the leader of MK Party, their true mission is to give us 100% freedom. That's not what I'm saying. But if these people would exclude you, if these people would reject you, if these people would try by all means to block you, it's because, in most cases, it's because there's something positive that you are coming with. But that something positive will only benefit the indigenous people of this land.
Mkhonto Wesizwe under Mr. Zuma and the economic freedom fighters under Mr. Malema. Now, the reason that my party, the Democratic Alliance, which has been an opposition party for over 30 years, chose to join hands with Mr. Ramaphosa's party was precisely to keep those people out of power. We cannot have those people sitting in the union buildings making decisions. And that is why after 30 years of us exchanging barbs across the floor in Parliament and trying to get one over on each other.
In other words, no context at all. No, in other words, if you are going to criticize someone, give context. If you are going to say, this is a bad person, give context. Why you are doing that. In other words, if you don't give context, then it means you are a thief. In other words, you are a destroyer. It's all about yourself. It's like, for an example, during apartheid, there was a time when reggae music was banned. And many people were like, no, reggae music is bad. You should not listen to reggae music and etc. Why? Because they were able to manipulate the minds of the people. So that is why I'm like, if you are going to criticize, you have to give context. It shouldn't be like, these guys from Mkhonto Wesizwe, economic freedom fighters, these guys are bad. We came together because we wanted to exclude them because if we can allow these people, this genocide will take over. Yes, this genocide is not happening. In other words, Steenhuisen is in support of Ramaphosa that this genocide is not happening. But if we can allow this guy here, then it means this genocide you are talking about is going to happen. There's no context. The context here of Julius Malema is like, if you don't address 1, 2, 3, then it means 4, 5, 6 will happen.
We've decided to join hands precisely to keep that lot out of government, because the day they get in to the doors of the union buildings in South Africa or control of our parliament, that's what you're going to see. And that is why this government, working together, needs the support of our allies around the world so that we can strengthen our hand, grow our economy, and shut the door forever on that rabble getting through the doors of the union buildings, because then
shut down the door forever for that rebel. This should give you another perspective that Chris Hani was a rebel. If Julius Malema is a rebel, then it means even Chris Hani was a rebel. I'm sure you understand me very well.
South Africa's future would be...
So you denounced that type of language in the video that you saw?
Oh yes, we've always done so. As government, as my own party, we are completely opposed to that. We, in 1955...
So now these boys of the system, they have to convince the system now that no, we are against these people. We are not in alignment with these people. My party this, my party that. Now we have to convince the master, because as the boys of the master, we should not mess up with the master.
I've adopted a document which said South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
But why wouldn't you arrest that man? That man said, kill the white farmers, kill the white farmers. And then he danced, and he's dancing, and it's kill the white farmers. I think, I'm not sure, but I think if somebody got up in Parliament and started saying kill a certain group of people, he would be arrested very quickly.
In other words, this man should be arrested. This is what is happening in America. If you raise your voice in America as a black person, you will be arrested. Don't believe what you see on TV here in movies. In real life, living as a black person in America, you don't have like 100% freedom. In other words, they have to threaten you with police. So that is why Donald Trump is like, this man should be arrested.
That man is going all over South Africa, and that's not a small party. That was a stadium that holds 100,000 people, and I hardly saw an empty seat. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of representation. And those crosses, we have dead white people, dead.
According to John Steenhuisen, we have to shut that door of union building forever for this man. What does this mean? It means forever, as a black person, you should not get any freedom. And according to Donald Trump, anyone who wants to bring this topic on a table should be arrested.
White farmers, mostly. And you take a look at Australia, they're being inundated, and we're being inundated with people that want to get out. And their farm is valueless. It's valueless. And they just want to get out with their life. And this is a very serious situation. And if we had a real news or real press or media, we don't have that, because they won't talk about this, because they're all guys like that idiot. But if we had a real press, it would be exposed. And you know, the beauty of exposing it is it's like a cleansing action. When it gets exposed, it'll get fixed. That's when it'll get fixed. But people don't talk about it. And I'll tell you who's talking about the thousands of people that are fleeing South Africa right now.
Will you discuss USAID and the devastating impact the cuts are having across the African continent?
You know, it's devastating, and hopefully a lot of people are going to start spending a lot of money. And I've talked to other nations. We want them to chip in and spend money too. And we've spent a lot, and it's a tremendous problem going on in many countries. A lot of problems going on. The United States always gets the to request for money. Nobody else helps, as you know. Europe doesn't help. Europe hasn't given anything. All they do is sue our companies. You know, they sue Apple, and they sue all of our companies. Apple had to pay $17 billion on a nonsense lawsuit. Very unfair. But we're going to always be there to help.
Regarding extreme rights to South African broadcasting, if this Afrikaner resettlement issue is resolved, you're going to go into a room after this, you guys are going to talk. If it is resolved, what is the potential for the future-looking relationship between the United States?
It's got to be resolved. It should be resolved. It's a little bit bad when you see a stadium with 100,000 people in it, because that means it's more than just a little movement. It's a pretty big movement in South Africa. So it has to be resolved. It'll be the end of the country if it's not.
But is there potential for the relationship moving forward?
I hope so.
You have to ask yourself why these 100,000 people are behind this man. What is the reason? These people, they always talk about justice, they always talk about law and order, but they can't ask themselves a question. Why these people, 100,000 of them, can follow this man? The reason they follow this man, here is the context, is because these people, they don't have what belongs to them, which is their land and its economy.
So that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm not here for my health. I'm here to see what it is. No, I'd like to see. I have friends. I can tell you, Ernie Els and Retief Goosen, they feel so strongly they wanted to be here on behalf of South Africa.
These are his friends on the behalf of the Boers, or some of the Boers who agree with this whole thing. These are his friends. These people are not representing me. These people are not representing my brothers and sisters who sleep on the streets. These people are not representing us who are excluded in our economy. These people are his buddies and the buddies of President Ramaphosa. President Ramaphosa and few others who are there just as a black face puppeting.
Not on behalf of me. And, you know, they said, can we be here for this? Because they love the country. Ernie, do you guys want to say a couple of words? I hate to put you in this. This is tougher than sinking a 3-footer. They've sank many 3-footers.
You have to know one thing, that these people are not representing the indigenous people of this land. They are representing their own people, their own lifestyle, their own businesses, their own fame and everything. They are not representing black people. There's no black business person who is there. What does this mean? It means the black people are excluded from the economy of South Africa. That is why when it comes to making business deals for South Africa, you'll always see this face, like when the rugby team is playing.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thanks for the honor of being here. We've known each other a long time. We have spoken. You know, we're proud South Africans. I still have my South African passport. You know, we travel with this passport, you know, and I got my visa here. So, you know, but we want to see things get better in our home country. That's the bottom line. It's been 35 years since the transition. President Ramaphosa was right in the middle of the transition time in 1990 and before that. So it's been 35 years of ANC government, and I know there's a lot of anger, you know, through the transition. There was also a lot of stuff happening in the apartheid days. You know, we grew up in the apartheid era, but I don't think two wrongs makes a right. You know, President Mandela, when he came out of prison for all that time.
Nelson Mandela this, Nelson Mandela that. If two wrongs can't make right, then it means give justice a chance. Why are they afraid to give justice a chance? It's because they know very well that, in other words, they are led by greediness. It's all about them. It's all about them, not about black people. That is why even when people visit South Africa from America, it can be black people and others. In most cases, they want to go to Johannesburg, Soweto, Cape Town. That way, there's no way you would know what is going on here in South Africa. Because South Africa is not Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Soweto.
Didn't come out with hatred, you know, and really unified our nation through sport. You know, we won the Rugby World Cup in '95.
4 times.
We won the African Nations Cup, soccer. You know, we won some majors as golfers and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, this has been a long time coming. That's why we really wanted to meet you, meet the administration, and see our way forward, because we still want to see our country flourish. You know, we've got some great things going on. Business is getting involved with government. Farmers are getting involved in local municipalities, trying to rebuild some of the infrastructure that's been decaying for a long time. So there's a lot of coexistence going on and help from a lot of areas. But I feel we need the US to push this thing through. We've got a great ally, if we can have the US. It's always been an ally of South Africa for a very long time.
The reason USA is still friends with South Africa, but the other friend is manipulating the other friend, is because of the apartheid system. It's because of colonialism. So that is why they don't want to see this shift that they see right now. In other words, between South Africa and Russia or BRICS countries. They don't want that at all. The reason I'm saying this is embarrassing is because BRICS countries would no longer trust South Africa to the fullest because of this. I'm not saying you cannot negotiate with other friends. But if you have genuine friends, stick to those friends. In other words, don't put your relationship with these genuine friends at risk, at the expense of a friend who can betray you whenever they want to.
Even in the days of the war, you know, up in Angola, you know, you guys helped us. So very important for us to have your support and you know, get the change we need.
Where did you do that well? He might have done that even better than he plays golf, which is almost impossible. Johan, please.
Sorry, Mr. President, if you had to wind all of those tapes properly, you will see I'm the biggest target of that rabble-rouser. Number one for over 10 years, Mr. Malema. In fact, the first time I met him, he was in the youth league with that gentleman. And look.
In other words, this boy here, the first time I met him, he was with that man. He was with that man. And in other words, I'm not living a good life because of that man. I'm depressed because of that man. My rights have been violated because of that man. But this boy here now, this boy is a good boy. That is why he taps him on his shoulders. Why? Because now this boy is a good boy. Then you have to know that the moment they call you a good boy, you have sold your family.
How he's changed.
Right.
We have too many deaths, but it's across the board. It's not only white farmers, it's across the board. And we need technological help. We need Starlink at every little police station.
In other words, black people are thieves. In one of my other videos, I said, if I take away what belongs to you, how do I expect you to survive? How do I expect you to survive? Most definitely, you are going to produce thieves. You are going to produce people who will have a problem with you. Why? Because what belongs to them is with you now. But now they are like, we want drones, we want this, we want to be protected. Because we don't want these people to keep on coming to us. We don't want these people to give us sleepless nights. In other words, we don't want these people to give us problems. I wish every black child can watch this video, can like focus on my analysis, not because these analyses are perfect, so that you can see how these people can manipulate your minds. So now they are trying by all means to manipulate the minds of all the people across the world, even here in Africa, to say that man is wrong, that man is bad. But this boy here, the one I'm tapping on the shoulder, this boy here is now right.
We need drones. I actually got drones donated for the peace parks to stop elephant and rhino poaching. And his predecessor stopped the importation because he said the United States would spy on us.
Now they have to criticize Jacob Zuma so that they can give attention to their current puppet. This is what they do. I'm not a fan of MK. I'm not a fan of any other political party, because I know that political parties, they are just delaying us. This is my perception. But here is the thing. This is what they did. That is why right now people are like, Jacob Zuma is corrupt. Jacob Zuma is this. This is what they programmed. This is their plan. That is why they're like, no, the predecessor was not a good man at all. He didn't care about our safety. He didn't care about context. Is very important.
I mean, US basics, the ridicule. So if you can help us. Remember, sir, you and I lived in New York in the 70s. We never thought New York could be what it became. 2 commissioners, a tough mayor. We need your help to stop this awful killing. But it's across the board. Ernie is right now building a house in George. I'm building 3 cottages for my grandchildren on a farm outside Graaff-Reinet. I often go to bed without locking the door. And we have a serious problem with illegal aliens.
In other words, we have a problem. We want to be protected because we want to build houses for our grandchildren, and we don't want our grandchildren to be disturbed. So these boys here, the president and others, they have to make sure that they listen to you, President of the world, Mr. Donald Trump.
who stream across the border. And if you really look at our statistics, a lot of these murders, firstly it's unemployment and illegal aliens. And then I met Vice President Watts many years ago at Charlie Rose show. My wife loved the book. And she reminded me this morning that you emphasized the devastation that occurs when big companies leave towns and cities, and there's a culture of dependency that develops. I remember you discussing it. Now that's our problem. If we don't get our economy to grow, the culture of dependency and the lawlessness will increase. I've again been against apartheid all my life, and I'm their #1 target. Please just Google my name and Malema.
Just Google my name and Malema. I'm a big target. No, he's a big target. Why are you a target? Why are you a target? Yes, because when we search on Google, Google might tell us whatever they want to tell us. But what I like, Google is also like a library of multiple websites. There are websites that can also tell the truth about what is happening in context. So that is why whenever you do a research, don't take something which is the first one to pop up, but you also need to do your thorough investigation. Why Malema is targeting him is because this man and others are a stumbling block of the liberation of black people. This man is part of the system.
You'll see it, sir. He marched on the farm.
But the crime is bad.
The crime is terrible, sir, but Mr. Steenhuisen won't admit to it, but he runs the Western Cape, where I live. And the biggest murder rate is in the Cape Flats. Gangs. We've got gang warfare. Like your M33, whatever these guys. We've got equivalents there, but we need your help, sir. And we need Elon technology.
Well, we need Elon technology. We need Elon technology. Soon or later, many people or few people will be hired to work for Elon at the expense of the safety of Africans. Because now they have to bring drones, they have to bring their own technology so that it can take our information to America, so that they can do whatever they want to do, so that even when they want to disappear us, they can do it as they please. So that is why they want the technology of Elon. That's the main focus. In other words, we have to bring this thing of genocide. We have to make it believable. We have to make everybody to fear to even visit South Africa, just so that we can promote our brother Elon.
One of the real areas of support is really in investments. We've got to grow our economy, because through growing the economy, we're then able to create more jobs.
My brothers and sisters, I'm tired of this thing that you have to invest so that we can create more jobs. Even the economics, the accounting that they gave to us is full of errors. If someone wants to control you forever, even if they can give you a scholarship, that scholarship won't benefit you with anything. That is why when we say this person is business-minded, you have to talk about investment. Then this investment will create jobs, but this investor should come from somewhere, because these people are investors, we are consumers, we have to work for them.
Because crime really thrives where there is inequality and unemployment. And that is one of the reasons that has brought us here, to improve our investment relations, our trade relations, so that we can preserve the number of jobs that your companies have created in South Africa. By virtue of what we export to you, we are able to create up to 500,000 jobs in the auto industry, in the agricultural industry.
That is why the title of this video is the most embarrassing situation I have ever seen. Because America was here in 1994, 1999, 2000, 2010. America was here. But the economy of South Africa kept on deteriorating. In other words, unemployment increasing. So what is it? A special thing that America can do now? Absolutely nothing.
Industry and a number of other industries, mining, where we export things to you. And we also know that as South African companies invest here, you are also able to create jobs. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. So our main real reason for being here is to foster trade and investment, so that we are able to grow our economy with your support, and so that we are also able to address all these societal problems, because criminality thrives when people are unemployed, when they have no other hope to eke out a living. So that is what we need to resolve, and your support, your partnership with us is what is really going to give us a strong capability to move forward.
Retief, do you have, excuse me, do you have anything to say? I mean, I don't want to leave you out. You know, the guy won 3 or 4 majors. 3 or 4?
No, only 2.
That's a lot. By the way, 2's a lot. A lot of tournaments you won too. You have anything to say?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. President Ramaphosa. I grew up in an area in South Africa that is a farmland area, Polokwane.
Yeah.
And there is some issues up there. Obviously, my dad was a property developer as well as a part-time farmer. And yeah, some of these buddy farmers got killed. The farm is still going. My brothers run it, but it's a constant battle with farms they're trying to burn the farms down to chase you away. So it is a concern to try and
bear in mind, these people are representing themselves.
Make a living as a farmer, and at the end they, without farmers, there's no food on the plate. So we need the farmers to produce the food.
Farming, right? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't even want to do what you're doing. Right? They love farming. They don't want to leave. But it's a struggle.
Yeah, and food and fresh water is the most important thing in life. Without those 2 things you can't survive.
How is the water there?
The water is great. Obviously, all the water comes out of the borehole, out of ground for us down there. But yeah, it is a battle to get the water out sometimes when all the equipment gets stolen all the time that you're trying to get the water out.
So does your family and your brother, do they feel safe on the farm?
They live behind electric fences, try and be at night safe. But it is constant whenever you leave that something could happen. And
everybody that is there is in support of Donald Trump. They are talking to please Donald Trump, to the point whereby President Ramaphosa and his people here are now fully embarrassed. In other words, they say what Donald Trump wanted to hear in order to prove that what he has been saying, like this thing of genocide, is correct.
You know, both of them has been attacked in their houses. My mom's been attacked in her house when she was 80. So it is difficult. But, you know, the guys live a great life despite everything going on.
Something.
President Trump, I brought along the president of the largest trade union in our country, Ziggy Solosi, because she leads many, many workers, more than 1 million, 2 million workers. And maybe we should give her a chance to say something, because she's come all the way to join us.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Trump, for having us, and President, for extending the invitation to us as organized labor. And I must say that we are here to support the initiative that has been made by our government with business, of course, as organized labor. We've been coming to Washington on the AGOA trade relations in the previous regime. And I think at the center of it all, for me, it is exactly what Mr. Rupert has said, the importance of us growing the economy. We have always emphasized when we were here and kept on coming and negotiating on AGOA that the 600 US companies that are based in South Africa, as you said, President Ramaphosa, 500,000 jobs will be wiped out. We need more foreign direct investment in our country. We are not just talking about those that will lose employment, but we are talking about over 40% of people that are unemployed, that have no hope of ever finding a job. And we think that, correctly, as they have said, that we need to deal with the issue of porous borders in our country, so that everyone that comes in is documented. We also need to, and I would have thought that the minister would address the issue of land expropriation and how the policy works in South Africa. Recently, President, as you were preparing to come here on the news, in, I think it was in Natal, there was a handover of farms. And white farmers were saying, we are donating the land, but also there's a willing buyer, willing seller in South Africa. So there is no expropriation without compensation, but it is a willing buyer, willing seller. And that white...
This whole system of willing buyer, willing seller will never work, because it's far from justice. It's far from justice. That is why I always say Africa is where it is right now, because even during the times of transatlantic slave trade, Southern slave trade, and many other things that took place in Africa happened because of us. Some of them, or most of them, happened because we contributed. See, now our brothers and sisters are also contributing when it comes to selling South Africa to Western countries.
Farmer was even saying, President, that the government is even paying more in buying the land than what the land is worth of. And I think those are the realities, President, that we must say that we need to address, of course, but also the importance of agriculture linked to AGOA. People rely on it, and I think, as Retief have said, for survival and living. But lastly, for me, President, is also the issue of the crime statistics. There is no doubt about it that we are a violent nation, you know, for a number of reasons, and we're not condoning anything. But also, if you go into the rural areas where black majority are, you would see women, elderly, being raped, being killed, being murdered. And these are black elderly women that would be found throat slits, raped multiple times, and all of that. And the problem in South Africa, it is not necessarily about race, but it is about crime. And we think that we are here to say, how do we, both nations, work together to reset, to really...
We are a violent nation, and the solution is Elon. I would like to say this video It's not about segregating anyone, but I just want to say this is the time for Black people, Africans, to take care of themselves mentally. In other words, this is the time whereby we have to change our lifestyle. We should stop consuming this information from West. This poison from West, we should stop consuming it. I made this video this long because I wanted to give a full analysis when it comes to these lies about genocide in South Africa. And if you have watched this video to this level, thank you very much.